I have to be honest, I really like the direction League is going. It seems like Riot is having fun with League again, and it shows in the latest update we got. So it's been exactly 1 month since the last dev update where we got a good Q&A, but also it was confirmed that the juicier parts will come in the next update. And since the next update is now, strap up because we are diving into some really fun updates coming to League of Legends. So without further ado, let's dive in. As always, the video starts with the introduction of Meddler, and once again he is joined by Pabro, the new executive producer. They recorded this on September the 10th, which is only about 2 weeks ago. And to get right into the action, we immediately go to Riot Cadmus, the lead of the Game Modes team. Here he starts with a quick recap of what the team has dealt with this year. Arena went up with its 3rd iteration and they launched one of the biggest game modes so far. That of course being Swarm. Now, both of these game modes really shook up the casual experience for most League of Legends players. They both gave us something entirely new to play with a really good promise of sustainability, especially when it comes to Arena. And so, finally, we got an answer to the one question that everyone's been asking. Will Arena be permanent? With the answer being no. And there is a good reason why. For those of you who don't know, the reason why the 3rd Arena has been up for so long is because Riot wanted to see how sustainable the player engagement really is. It is one thing to have a lot of people play it at the beginning. But should it become permanent, what would the numbers look like after a few months? I mean, this is pretty much what happened with Dominion. A lot of people were playing it, but eventually it dried out. Well, to test this out, Arena was up for multiple months. And unfortunately, after the 2nd month, there was a pretty big drop-off in player engagement. The team then tried to bump it back up with a mid-scope update, but it didn't do much. Which means the best thing they can do with Arena is to keep it as a time-limited returning event. And we even got the confirmation that Arena will be back in the first half of 2025, with a lot more quality of life updates and some more wacky augments. So while Arena didn't surpass the expectation of a new game mode, and it will not become a permanent game mode, Arena enjoyers can still look forward to the next iteration. Now then, when it comes to Swarm, just like Arena, this game mode was big. And it was the first time League managed to get in new players from outside of the normal League of Legends bubble. Now, from the beginning we knew that Swarm was not meant to be permanent. And the server cost alone this thing brings in is wild. And so, just like Arena, it will not be a permanent game mode. With that said, we did get the confirmation that Swarm became the most popular PvE content League got so far. Apparently, more players engaged with it than they did with Star Guardians or Odyssey. And Riot even gave us a separate blog post where they gave us this graph. Now, of course, since there has been a 10-year gap between these events, yes, we are all old, they can't just put together a graph with the player hours because the audience changed so much. So instead, we have a percentage of the engagement. And here you can see that even just after the first week, most game modes drop to around 30% of the original engagement. But Swarm stayed around the 50% mark. And even on the 3rd week, about a quarter of the players were still playing it. Of course, after that, most people got all the achievements and they kept off their progression, and so it dipped further. But this still means that out of all the game modes, which yes, that also included Doom bots, Swarm was simply the best. And so, going back to the video, Cadmus then confirmed that while they don't know if or when Swarm makes a comeback, they saw the excitement the players had for this kind of a game mode, and they are taking it forward into their future projects, which might also be a potential return of Swarm. And in the meantime, they are also giving us something else to be excited about. Ultimate Spellbook, which is also coming back next patch. But to finish this part about game modes, there is one more thing. The team knows that ARAM didn't get much focus this year besides just normal balancing. However, the game modes team is cooking something for the ARAM enjoyers. And it should arrive before the end of the year. Now, putting on my tinfoil hat, this has to mean one thing, right? This is happening around the time Arcane 2 launches, and during Season 1 everyone pointed out that they should have given ARAM the Piltover Bridge skin, so this is now definitely happening, right? But that is pretty much it for the game modes. So now we move to Riot Frogzone, who talks about matchmaking. And at this point I'm convinced that's what he talks about every time he appears on screen. Then again, that's probably his job. But once again, we got another update on this topic. And this time, it is a pretty big one. So, last time they addressed the issue where some accounts dropped into the negative LP state, which is where people simply gained less LP than what they lost. And that was even if your MMR was supposed to help you climb. And this time he confirmed that that problem is pretty much gone. So next, the team is focusing on autofill. Recently, a lot of players might have felt that autofill is what decides who wins the game. And so, in 14.17, the team pushed for a new update that is helping with that. It was mostly just hidden mambo-jumbo under the hood, but it helped with matching people together appropriately. And as of today, with that being up, the number of games where you get 2 or more autofills with the enemy team having less went down from about 10% to less than 0.1. So now, games with 2 to 0 or 3 to 1 autofills have been eliminated. Now, I didn't feel like in the video this achievement had a good enough impact, so I'm here to fix that.
Games with 2-0 or 3-1 autofill players have been effectively eliminated.
Anyway, now the worst thing that can happen to you is that you get 1 autofill and the enemy team gets none. Which is technically not perfect matchmaking, but we are as close as you can get. For now. Because in fact, that is what the team is focusing on next. And eventually we should get that perfect balancing. Hopefully. Also, at the end of this part, we learned that True Skill 2 is now going through proper testing. In case you forgot, this is something that was mentioned in January of this year, with True Skill 2 essentially being a system that can really see how good you are at the game. It means that if you are good at the game, even if you lose, you should lose less LP. And if you are AFKing or you're trolling, the system knows that and you should lose a lot more. So the team will let us know how that's going next update. And with that, we go back to Meddler and Pabro, where we talk about Teemo's ASU. It should arrive in patch 14.20, and let me tell you, this update looks wild. This might actually be the biggest update a champion ever got. And mainly that might be because the old Teemo just really didn't age well. And in a way, it makes me wonder, what would Cho'Gath look like with an ASU now? Now, because this quality update is so massive, of course, some of the cheaper skins have to become more expensive. So, Happy Elf, Recon and Badger skins will be bumped up to 750 RP. This is the same thing that happened with the Lee Sin ASU. And so, if you really like what those skins are gonna look like after the ASU, you can buy them now at a cheaper price. Now, to show off all the skins as well as the process of how the ASU was made, Riot also gave us a massive blog post. In fact, it is so big it might be worth going through it in a separate video. And we learned that Teemo is also getting his own theme. And here we even got a sneak peek. Again, putting on my tinfoil hat. Considering how comical this is and how much it reminds me of something like the Earth theme, I would not be surprised if this theme was somehow tied to the 15th anniversary. But that's really it for Teemo. And so Pabro then moves on with a funny slip.
Switching topics, we've got Worlds 2025 kicking off in 3 days on September 25th with play-ins in Berlin.
I don't think it's 2025 just yet, unless he's already somehow teasing 2025. Anyway, yes, Worlds are happening right now, and as we all know, it has a little bit of an EU trip, with the finals being in London. The most interesting thing here, which I am pretty sure everyone will want to learn about, is that if you enjoyed my LEC vlog, which was my first esports event ever, there is about a 96.6% chance that I will make it to London. Of course, by now, it might be too late to do your pick'ems, but this year Riot also brought up a new system which they called Global Power Rankings. It's basically a leaderboard for all the teams in case you don't know what's going on. And honestly, I kinda wish I knew this existed before I did my pick'ems. And finally, we also learned that the world's anthem will be revealed now! And it is a Linkin Park song. Now, of course, at this time, all we heard was a teaser, and honestly, it sounded like a pretty good song. But after this video is out, that song will be also out, and so people will already make their own opinions. And I just hope it is so good it goes past all the strange drama that popped up around Linkin Park. Anyway, that is when they also dive into the 15th anniversary. Obviously, it won't be as big as the 10th anniversary, because this year they are focusing on Arcane, but things are getting juicy nonetheless. So first we are getting League Player Days, which is a celebration of our glorious journey through League throughout the past 15 years. Specifically, it will be 3 days that celebrate different kinds of players, from the casual enjoyers to the most hardcore climbers. First there will be Creative Day focusing on art, then there is the Music Day focusing on music, and Pabro even pointed out it makes sense because Riot is a music company after all. And finally there will be Esports Day to celebrate the competitive side of League of Legends. And here I just have one thing to point out. Where is the narrative day, Riot? Where is the day that carries your entire IP? Anyway, these days will also come with their own missions, which also give you a juicy reward. And since the 10th anniversary gave us the Anniversary Any skin, this time we are getting the Anniversary Sivir skin, which is basically your typical 2012 League of Legends enjoyer skin. But on top of that we are also getting 3 extra skins that will be purchasable. However, all the proceeds from those skins will go towards charity. And those skins will be cosplayer Nico, a great skin of Nico cosplaying as Chunk, which of course is tied to the Creative Day, the esports fan Trundle, which is a typical, and I mean very typical modern day esports fan. Of course this one is tied to the Esports Day, and since we also need a skin for the Music Day, Riot did the impossible and we are getting none other than KDA Gragas. Now, what is so special about this skin is that originally, KDA Gragas was concepted as a fun project during the 10th anniversary. During that celebration, there was an artist at Riot who held a panel and he was just doodling funny skins. And KDA Gragas just kinda became one of those. Well, 5 years later, it actually became a real skin. Pabro then once again confirms that from their initial release all the way to October 28th, all the proceeds will go towards Riot's Social Impact Fund, with Riot matching that donation 3 times themselves. Which is pretty much it for the skins too. So now we are diving into the 2025 plans, which might be possibly linked to what Pew Pew Lasers teased before. And here we learn that starting in 2025, League of Legends will evolve how it deals with seasons. Now, instead of having one big season spanning the entire year, League will have 3 separate seasons per year, each with a unique theme, and that should include narrative, progression, and content updates, with the goal being that each season truly feels different. Now, what this sounds like is that just like how in 2024 we got that voidy-ish update, with Grubs popping up and Baron getting a big update, it is likely that these seasons will be similar to that. 3 big updates a year that change how League of Legends behaves. However, they also mentioned that it will have a narrative side, which totally means that 2025 is also bringing back League's lore, and all of these seasons will have a story of their own. But mainly, it makes sense what Riot is trying to achieve here. You may recognize this progressive system from games like Fortnite or TFT. An evolving game always has a healthier player base than one that sits on one kind of gameplay the entire year. So perhaps the new seasonal system will make it feel like League of Legends is constantly marching forward. Because right now, it doesn't exactly do that. We only get one big update, and that happens at the beginning of the year. Now, Pablo also mentioned that each season will get its own champion, which could mean that in 2025 we are only getting 3 new champions. But honestly, that's fine, because that lines up with their new focus on older champions. But here he mentioned that those new champions will also have links to the other seasons, which again totally means there's gonna be one bigger story arc, right? Maybe lore is coming back. But here we also learned that the first new mechanic of the first season we get should deal with exposing Nexus. And to me, it kinda feels like maybe after you destroy the turrets, maybe your Nexus just becomes a boss fight of its own or something like that. But hey, that's just me being on copium. Of course, here they mentioned that they know that they didn't go into too much detail here, but that's because they are saving these bigger news for the big update that arrives a few days after Arcane's finale. And that is where this update ends. So, in short, get ready for some new fun things right after Arcane, I guess. And honestly, all of this really feels like a big turning point for League of Legends. The game modes team just went through a big success, and they are thinking about what can they do with game modes next. Matchmaking just eliminated some of the biggest flaws in the system. And ARAM was teased to get a bigger update soon too. And even when it comes to cosmetics, Riot is paying attention to what people like. And best of all, we are getting 3 new awesome skins, all of which directly support charity. So of course, Riot had to pay for that with a new gacha skin they didn't mention here, right?